Sera Voxlin hadn't believed in omens until the sky had started to whisper. For weeks, Velstrand's wind had been strange. It hadn't carried the usual scent of scorched alloy and dust. Instead, it had smelled of something older, colder, like silence, soaked in static. The old engineers down at Ruinside had called it burnt memory. Though none could explain it. Sera had been working on the spine of a junk hauler that morning, lying beneath rusted panels older than she was, sparks from her plasma torch licking. Her sleeves. Her fingertips had gone numb, not from heat, but from a vibration in the air that had started to hum through the tools themselves. She had turned her head slightly, listening. Her mask hissed as she exhaled. The wind had gone still. Her body had known before her brain could catch up something had entered their sky. Something unnatural. Then it happened at first. She had thought it was just a lightning crack, but it didn't vanish. It expanded white fissure had torn itself into the sky above Velstrand. Not like a weapons blast, not like orbital traffic. It had been vertical, slim at first, like a silver thread dangling from the stars. Slowly, methodically, it widened, opening like a mechanical eyelid. It had no sound, no thunder, but the hum had been there, low, subtle. Alive Sera had sat up too quickly and hit her head on the hauler's belly. She didn't curse. She barely breathed. Her eyes were locked on the shape forming above her. Not a ship, not a signal, but a gate, and somehow she had known its name, Altherion. Not from training, not from any document, but from a whisper deep in the back of her mind, like a memory she didn't remember making. Her comlink had crackled suddenly in her ear, bursting with static that turned into distorted voices. Oxlin. Respond. Unknown contact. Pull back. Lock down all. Fleet command to Krathel. Visual on anomaly. Code 9. Code 9. She didn't respond. She couldn't. Her mouth had gone dry, her hands tingling with something close to fear, but far deeper, like awe. She had stood up slowly, the weight of her tools forgotten. Her eyes never left the gate as its body continued to spin, not fast, not aggressive, just inevitable. Then came the voice. It didn't come from the comlink. It didn't echo in the sky. It bloomed inside her mind. And it said only one word, one terrible word: return. Sera had staggered backward, her boots catching on loose gravel. Her knees buckled slightly. She clutched her chest, not from pain, but from pressure. The air had grown heavier, like gravity was misbehaving. The gate was not asking. It was calling, and something inside her, something long buried, was answering. Her breath came fast now. She blinked and tried to clear her head, but the sound of sirens down in Krathel Base had begun. Military horns, faint but climbing, meant one thing: the Council was mobilizing. They had seen it too. They would try to cover this, try to shoot it, try to silence it, but it was far too late. Sera grabbed her tools, only because instinct told her to. She zipped up her thermal jacket, slung the gear onto her back, and took off down the cliff toward the cargo trams. She had no plan, no authority, no permission, but she had something else. She had seen the impossible, and somehow, without reason, without evidence, without logic, she knew that the voice inside the gate had belonged to her brother, the same brother who had vanished. 2 years ago, on a covert deep space mission, declared Kier burned from the records. Buried without a body, she had never accepted it. And now she didn't have to, because today the dead had spoken and they were calling her home. The tram ride down from Ruinside had been long, but not nearly long enough for Sera Voxlin to process what she had just seen. The Altherion Gate had remained, fixed in the upper stratosphere, humming without movement, radiating faint pulses of light like it was breathing. The Council had already declared martial lockdown. Rumors spread like wildfire. Old weapon, alien tech, deep fake warfare. But no one was using the word that mattered: return. Only she had heard it, and only one person on Velstrand might help her understand why DR. Alien Harkonnens laboratory wasn't listed on any active registry, because Alien hadn't worked for the Council in almost a decade. He had vanished after the failed Cortex Sync project, a memory transfer initiative that had ended in neurological collapse for over 30 test subjects. They said he had gone rogue. Sera had known better. They had met years ago, when she was still a pilot in training, and Alien was still celebrated neuroprogramming savant who had believed memory could be decoded like software. He had spoken slowly, always precisely, and never used more words than he had to. But he had listened. Back then, he had been one of the only people who didn't speak to her like a soldier. She remembered that. And now she needed Attilion's hideout was buried in the underlevels of a decommissioned thermal refinery, where the ceiling still dripped molten condensation and the walls hissed from recycled coolant. The door scanned her face without needing a prompt. He had been expecting her. I saw it, he said before she could speak, standing behind a translucent interface, dark circuits etched into his exposed forearms. His voice was quiet, but it always had been. And you heard it, didn't you? Sera nodded. One word, she said, breath tight. Return. Alien turned. His eyes had grown more tired since she last saw him, more sunken into the shadows of his face, like he had been trying not to sleep for years. It wasn't language, he said. It was imprint, something you felt, not processed, not translated. The gate didn't speak to you. It remembered you. She didn't know how to respond to that. He continued before she had to. You were there, the night Aelin disappeared. Sera blinked. How do you? I've been listening, he said. Just like you. The gate isn't transmitting on our bands. It's imprinting through cognitive static. Thought echoes. She stepped closer, her eyes narrowing. Then what the hell is it? Alien hesitated. He touched the interface, and the screen flared to life, showing a simulation, a spiral lattice of impossible geometry, wrapped in a glowing pulse pattern. The Altherion Gate, he said slowly, is a memory vault, not just for data, but for souls. Conscious echoes, stored inside quantum light cores. It's not trying to invade us. It's trying to bring something back. Sera swallowed. Her voice came smaller than she expected. Alien met her eyes. For the first time since she walked in, he looked afraid. I don't think it's just him. She felt the air. Leave her lungs. You think the Council knew? Alien nodded. They've been hiding it for decades, maybe longer. The gate was buried in classified black file transmissions. But even they couldn't decode it. I could. Barely. It's ancient. Tech older than Earth's expansion era. Maybe even older than Earth itself. The room felt colder now. Not from the coolant steam, but from the weight of what they were saying. Sera stepped back from the projection. Why now? Alien looked back toward the screen. His hand hovered just above it. Because someone out there has finally answered. Sera stayed silent. She was watching the waveform of the gate's hum loop in infinite patterns. It pulsed like a heartbeat. Alien's voice broke the silence again. You came here because you want to know how to talk back. Sera nodded once. Alien sighed deep and long. Then we'll need to go to the ruins. The Selyrix beacon. That's where the signal originates. Her stomach twisted. That zone's locked under military seal. Unauthorized access is a war crime. Alien gave her a half-smile, tired but resolute. That's why I'm bringing you. The Altherion Gate was no longer just an anomaly. It was a call, a whisper from the forgotten, a door that should have stayed closed. But Sera Voxlin was already walking toward it. The storm began not in the sky, but in the whispers of those who had seen the gate dot by the third day, The Altherion rift had widened beyond the city's stratoscope range. Civilian satellites had been jammed. The Council had deployed the Black Armada to establish a cordon around Velstrand. Soldiers were showing up on rooftops, scanning mines before scanning weapons. And yet, no one dared to say the word aloud. Selyrix. The name had been erased centuries ago. A species that Earth had called unfit for peace, too evolved for submission. They had vanished during the early colonization wars. Or so the Council had claimed. Sera Voxlin now knew that was a lie she and Alien Harkin had left Ruinside under. The cover of blackout storms, disguised as civilian repair engineers on a downed relay tower. It had taken them 32 hours to reach the Red Crescent Zone, where the ruins of the Selyrix beacon still breathed under the surface, cracked, half-buried, and forgotten only in the public record. But something else had been waiting for them, something alive. He stepped forward from behind the half-collapsed archway, his skin like polished copper, veined with dark crimson alloy, not armor flesh. His eyes weren't eyes at all, but radiant bands of violet light, steady, observant. Ancient, I am friend Kai volume, he said, not through mouth, but mind. You entered the memory threshold. You heard the call. Sera almost reached for her pulsa blade. Ilian stopped her with a single glance. Don't, he whispered. He's not here to kill us. He's here because we're already dead to the Council. Thren moved closer. He was taller than any human Sera had seen, but his steps were silent, measured, like every movement had been designed by intent, not instinct. You are not enemies, he said. You are bridges. Sera stood tall. Then talk. Thren turned, motioning them deeper into the ruin. Strange lights flickered along the stone as they followed, glowing not from electricity, but memory. Yes, memory. The beacon was not a structure. It was an archive of thought. It pulsed like a heart, connected directly to the gate orbiting above. Inside, they saw visions, not projections. Not simulations, but real memories and unfiltered history. They watched the First Contact War, saw the Selyrix offer alliance, saw Earth's early councils rejected, saw betrayal unfold on 1,000 silent screens, Selyrix cities destroyed, younglings dissected, ceasefires broken before they began. And still, the Selyrix had offered peace again and again, until they vanished into their vaults, taking their minds with them, leaving behind a whisper and a gate. Sera had to sit down. Her legs had stopped trusting. Hurlian had not spoken for minutes. His hands trembled over his neural pad, recording patterns that shouldn't have existed anymore. Thren Ka volume finally spoke again. We did not return for war. Sera looked up, her voice sharp. Then why come back? To see if you remember what you've done. Outside, the Black Armada was mobilizing. Council fleets had begun converging on Velstrand orbit. The rift had been declared a galactic hazard. Earth was preparing for a first strike. Sera knew what was coming. She could see it in Thren's eyes, the pain, the restraint. We can't stop Earth from firing, she said. Thren's glow dimmed slightly. No, but we can choose not to fire back. Yet, Ilian's voice cracked. You want to make a pact. You want us to be your mouthpieces. Thren nodded. We do not seek vengeance, but if war is chosen again, we will not die quietly. Sera stood. The wind shifted. Somewhere above them, a sonic boom shook the dirt loose from the ruins. Sealing the first warship had entered orbit, she looked at Thren. If I stand with you, I become a traitor to my own world. If you stand with silence, Thren replied, you become a traitor to memory. There were no more questions after that, only the pact sealed in the memory core of the beacon, where Sera placed her hand beside Thren's, feeling the alloy of his skin burn into hers with light. The bond etched into them a shared voice, a shared truth. The pact of crimson alloy had been made, and soon the stars would bleed for it. They came without warning, no formal declaration. No diplomatic channels, just ash and fire and silence the black. Armada's strike on the Selyrix listening moon was not sanctioned by the Earth Council. At least, that was what the Council would claim in public. But Sera Voxlin knew the truth. It had been preemptive punishment. Not for an attack, but for a conversation. The Council could not afford a peace they did not orchestrate. If Sera and Thren Cavalium were building a bridge, then Earth would burn. The river from the cratered remains of the beacon, Sera watched the sky erupt. Flaming debris rained like tears over Velstrand's scarred ground. Civilian networks fell offline within hours. Every remaining gate channel was blocked or overridden. The planet had gone dark. The war had begun. Alien. Harkin had taken a blast fragment through his shoulder, trying to protect the beacon's core. Sera dragged him through the ash field by the straps of his coat, her lungs aching from smoke, her vision stained red from the targeting lasers that danced overhead like ghosts. "We have to move, Alien. Stay awake." "I can't feel my arm," he whispered. "You'll feel it later. Right now, you just need to live." His laugh was faint, bitter. "You always make survival sound like a threat." It took them 10 hours to reach an abandoned Selyrix outpost, buried under the obsidian flats of the Itar crust. Thren was already. There, silent, focused, scanning the collapse pattern of the moon asterisk. He looked up as Sera approached. His eyes, if they could be called eyes, dimmed slightly when he saw Alien bleeding. "Your people," Thren said quietly, "have answered the call with violence." Sera dropped Alien beside a med station panel and turned to him. "I told you. This might happen." "Yes, and still I had hoped." The room trembled again. Far above, Earth's fleet had begun orbital cleansing, a tactic designed to sanitize local resistance without engaging in full surface war. They were targeting communication structures, data cores, transport routes, not to kill the Selyrix. To erase the evidence that night, Alien passed out twice from blood loss. The first time, Sera brought him back with adrenaline. The second time, he awoke mumbling about his failed experiments. About how memory isn't data, it's witness. She didn't understand at first. Then he looked at her, blinking slow, and said, "They're not just storing history in that beacon, Sera. They're preserving pain." The next day, Sera led a strike team, her, Thren, and 3 Selyrix warriors into a fallen colony outpost under siege. The humans inside weren't soldiers. They were medics, engineers, a few defectors who had tried to speak out and had been abandoned when the bombing began. Sera fought like a ghost that day. Fluid, silent, deadly. She didn't kill for revenge. She killed for proof that this wasn't about sides. It was about silence and who refused to live in it. She found a child in the rubble. Human. 8 years old. Cradling a broken comms unit like it was a weapon. When she reached for him, he flinched, then stared up at Thren, who stood behind her, glowing and still. The boy whispered, "Are you the monsters they told us about?" Thren knelt, slowly, carefully, then offered his hand. "No," he said. "We are the ones they forgot to mourn." That night, Sera sat alone in the outpost bunker, staring at the flame dancing from a cracked generator core. Alien sat beside her. He'd stabilized. "You've changed," he said. "So have you," she replied. "I don't mean in the body. I mean in the soul. You don't flinch anymore." Sera looked away. "I can't afford to flinch. Not when the truth bleeds this loud." They received word hours later. The Selyrix Vault fleet was preparing to activate the gate, not for war. For message. They intended to broadcast every memory of every betrayal Earth ever committed across every system, every channel, every language, a single, undeniable echo of pain. The Council would never survive it, but they'd destroy the gate before they let it happened. And Worskale Drast had returned, once Sera's mentor. Now the Council's executioner, he had captured dozens of dissidents including Sera's brother, not dead, not buried, brainwashed, turned into a drone soldier in Earth's shadow wing. They hadn't just killed her brother. They'd hollowed him out and left the shell marching. There were no more doubts. The lines had been drawn in ash and blood, and Sera Voxlin was ready to burn. The sky to draw new ones. The sky had cracked. Not with lightning, not with warships, but with memory. The Altherion Gate pulsed above Velstrand like a second sun, its surface no longer white and smooth, but burning with violet scars. It had begun to unravel. Each pulse bled waves of history into space, transmitting everything the Selyrix had, kept hidden for centuries. And Earth had declared it an act of war. Sera Voxlin stood at the edge of the orbital breach. Inside the control nexus of the Selyrix vault ship, the Varan, Phil Core, the broadcast was nearly complete. In less than 20 minutes, every world within the Terran Federation would receive the full stream, the genocides, the experiments, betrayals. They would see everything Earth tried to bury. Earth would burn it all before letting that happen. Kael'drast's flagship, the Templar Ash, was closing fast. It carried the weapon that could destabilize the gate. A void core bomb, capable of collapsing memory space into itself. Alien Harkin, stitched and pale, stood beside her at the terminal. He had linked his neural net to the gate's archive. If Earth's weapon hit while he was still connected, he would be lost with it. And Thren Kavalium, leader of the Selyrix, warrior of remembrance, stood on the opposite side of the platform. "We can't let the signal stop," Thren said. "Even if the gate dies, even if we die," Sera nodded slowly. "We won't stop, but I'm not losing anyone else." That's when she saw him dragged in chains, face-blank eyes, Alien Voxlin, her brother. His armor was branded with Earth's insignia, his pupils laced with neural inhibitors. His pulsablade was drawn. They had programmed him like a weapon. Drast stood behind him, watching with the stillness of a ghost. His voice, sharp and controlled, came through the gate's open come line. "You want to be a symbol, Sera? Then bleed like one. Either shut the gate down, or he kills every living thing inside it." Sera's hand trembled. Her brother took one step forward, then another. The inhibitors had taken his memories, his choices, his name. She had two options: kill him to protect the gate, or destroy the gate to save him. Alien had said once, "Memory is witness." And she realized, in that moment, she didn't have to choose between her brother and the truth. She only had to give him back his memory. Alien surged forward and connected the gate's neural feedback loop to Ellen's interface. The blast of energy nearly killed him, but it worked. Alien froze mid-step. His eyes flickered, his blade dropped, and then his voice cracked open like sunlight through a storm. "Sera?" He fell to his knees, sobbing. His mind was returning. His memories. His name, Kale. Fired. But Thren intercepted the blast with his body. A wave of violet light exploded through the chamber. Selyrix alloy cracked across his chest. His voice burned in the chamber's core. "Let them remember." And with his final breath, he pushed the last piece of the transmission live. The truth spread like fire, across systems, across factions, across stars. The gate collapsed, folding into itself, with a sound like glass shattering inside. A dream. The Templar Ash lost its targeting. Kael'drast vanished in the explosion. The war didn't end that day, but the lie did. Sera Voxlin stood in the ruins of the Nexus. Alien lived. The Selyrix, broken and few, lived, and they raised a new symbol. Not a flag, not a faction, but a silent mark carved in the alloy of the beacon. A single line, unbroken, representing memory without manipulation. They called it the Echo Line, and those who carried it did not swear allegiance to Earth or Selyrix. They swore allegiance to truth, to memory too. Those who never had the chance to speak.